Hello everyone, please press subscribe, press follow, press the bell so you don't miss any new clips. Astral Pets Store. Author by Ancient She. Audio novels by Novelist. Astral Pet Store. Chapter 146 Victory. At the moment of impact, the 7 thunder slashes carried by the purple shadow fox's tails were impaled into the burning flames covering the Inferno Dragon. The next second, the purple shadow fox was knocked away, flying toward the edge of the stage. The purple shadow fox reached the edge of the stage, bumping into the transparent protective screen and falling down. Fei Yanbo darted a quick look at the Inferno Dragon. It was standing firm, it had not moved one bit. Fei Yanbo was scared. How was that possible? How could the Inferno Dragon remain standing after being hit by the lightning cannon and the 7 thunder slashes? Right then, the Inferno Dragon roared and dashed toward the purple shadow fox again as if none of the previous strikes had exerted any influence over it. What happened stunned Dongming Song and the others. They couldn't understand it. They did admit that the Inferno Dragon was strong. But how could a pet that had barely reached adulthood fend off such ferocious attacks from the purple shadow fox? The strangest thing was that it seemed as if the Inferno Dragon had seen through the purple shadow fox's moves from the very beginning and used the sonic wave and thunder flames to scare away the latter. The Inferno Dragon was at the 7th rank. What enabled it to detect the purple shadow fox's actions? Pets of the Thunder family were known for their fast speed, and it was even more true for the purple shadow fox. The word shadow in its name indicated that the purple shadow foxes were fast as the wind and only their shadows could be caught. As a dragon, the Inferno Dragon had all-rounder skills. But the strongest of all was the hellish flames, not its speed. On the stage, Fei Yanbo was stunned to see the Inferno Dragon unharmed. Soon, a trace of violence flashed past his face. He gave his command. Roar. Behind him, the purple shadow fox quickly stood up again. Bolts of lightning and thunder were surging and the purple shadow fox roared at the sky. All-round thunder prison. Thick bolts of lightning were raging on the stage. Dark clouds began to gather above the fighting area. The air was filled with electric arcs. After a short moment of preparation, the flashes of lightning and bolts of thunder smashed down and covered up the Inferno Dragon completely. The Inferno Dragon's flames were also swallowed by the lightning and the blazing thunderbolts. Such violent strikes of lightning shocked the audience. This was heart-wrenching for them. Ping! When Su Lingyu saw this glaring lightning, the shock on her face had transformed into tension and worry without her knowing. Su Ping raised his eyebrows as he stood behind the Inferno Dragon. The purple shadow fox had built a thunder prison stronger than he had expected. The level of destruction exerted by the thunder prison was approaching the upper position of the 8th rank. This purple shadow fox has some commendable abilities. Su Ping nodded. This fox was an excellent one. He then darted a glance at the Inferno Dragon that was bathing in the lightning and thunderbolts. He could sense that the Inferno Dragon was quite happy. On his mind, he said grumpily, "Quit fooling around. Do you think this is shower time?" Next, the blazing white light over the Inferno Dragon was suddenly burst open. Roar. The Inferno Dragon stepped out and the hellish flames broke out again. Carrying strong murderous intent, the Inferno Dragon charged at the purple shadow fox. This sudden turn of events made the sneer freeze on Fei Yanbo's lips. He stood there in shock, completely speechless. The Inferno Dragon was still standing. How could it come out uninjured again? The all-round thunder prison had enough strength to inflict severe injuries on pets of the 8th rank's intermediate position, leaving those pets with skin cut open and flesh torn. How could this 7th rank Inferno Dragon that had just reached adulthood come out of this completely safe and sound? While he stood there in silence, Fei Yanbo noticed all of a sudden that before the hellish flames had burst out from the Inferno Dragon, a grayish shell was covering the red scales of the Inferno Dragon. Stone armor. This stone armor was kind of strange as well, with cracks all over it. It seemed like the stone armor had been broken by a severe blunt force. However, there was a green glow seeping out from the cracks. That green was the color of plants. Fei Yanbo opened his eyes wide. He had seen dragons using skills of the stone family, but such skills were not something the dragons would excel at. Of all the elemental forces, dragon flames and the other inherent skills were the strongest skills for dragons. Most of them would focus on training their inherent skills in any case. Considering how arrogant dragons were, it wasn't likely that they would study other elements. However, this Inferno dragon had not only employed stone armor, but also a skill of the botanic family. Both skills could fend off thunder, which explained why the Inferno dragon could withstand the thunder slashes and the thunder prison with the help of the 2 layers of protection and the Inferno dragon's scales. No wonder the Inferno dragon was unharmed. Fei Yanbo finally understood. His face turned even paler. Understanding the mechanism behind it was one thing. To solve the problem was an entirely different matter. This shameless dragon was one that cravenly clung to life instead of braving death, using stone armor and skills of the botanic family to protect himself. Faced with such an enemy, the purple shadow fox could not put its abilities into full play. All the skills of the thunder family were greatly undermined and the actual effects were limited. Where was the famous draconic pride? You're a strong dragon to begin with. Now, you're covering yourself with a stone armor. Can you even call yourself a dragon? Fei Yanbo clenched his fists in anger. At the same time, he felt this fight was unfair. Su Ping could tell from Fei Yanbo's blue face that he had noticed the stone armor over the Inferno dragon. The stone armor was a skill that the Inferno dragon had picked up by itself after dying time and again. Dragons were arrogant, however, when they were facing stronger enemies and when they had to die many times over, even an Inferno dragon would have to lower its head and learn defensive skills of the element family. After all, nobody wanted to die, right? This Inferno dragon might not be so powerful in attacks, barely approaching the 8th rank. On the other hand, when it came to protection and defense, a pet below the 9th rank could not inflict any harm on the Inferno dragon. Fei Yanbo did not let his purple shadow fox continue the energy attack. All of those strikes had only worked as a means to scratch an itch for the Inferno dragon. The only way to defeat it was to rely on close-quarter combat. Problem was, dragons were known for their tough skin and flesh. This idea frustrated Fei Yanbo. Commanded by Fei Yanbo, while enraged, the purple shadow fox had yet to lose its senses. Aside from the thunder prison and the thunder slash, the purple shadow fox could rely on other skills such as thunder rush and toxic thunder claw. Whoosh! The purple shadow fox dashed around quickly. It resorted to thunder shadow illusion again and split into 2. The 2 purple shadow foxes charged toward the Inferno dragon from 2 sides. The purple shadow fox was fast to begin with. At that moment, it increased its speed again. It was because of the thunder rush. The moment the thunder rush was released, the 2 purple shadows were moving so fast that they flew past quickly. If it weren't for the fact that the purple shadow fox was over 10 meters long, the students wouldn't have been able to see it moving at all. The 2 purple shadow foxes reached the Inferno dragon in an instant. The 2 purple shadow foxes flanked the Inferno dragon and attacked its wings with sharp claws surrounded by purple air. Bang! The wings were torn apart. The violent force contained on the sharp claws was spread further and the entire Inferno dragon was shredded into pieces. However, there was no blood coming out. Was it an illusion? No, it was a mirror image. An advanced skill of the water family, mirror image. Fei Yanbo, along with Dongming Song and the rest of the audience, were completely astonished. Since when could an Inferno dragon use skills of the water family? Not to mention the fact that this was an advanced skill. How much effort would the Inferno dragon have to exert to learn this water skill? Bang! The stage shook. All of a sudden, a huge pile of earth rose from the ground. The ground cracked and flames burst out into the open. The Inferno dragon came out from underground and punched with its claw. The claw was covered with concentrated flames. It landed on the purple shadow fox's left side. That slim and thin purple shadow fox trembled like a willow twig and then it was knocked onto the ground. The purple hair that came into contact with the dragon's claw was burning up. The flames were spreading raw. The Inferno dragon dashed out quickly. It flapped its wings, which increased its speed. Electric arcs were glistening around its feet. The Inferno Dragon was using Thunder Rush as well. The Inferno Dragon was as fast as an 8th rank pet since it was exerting all its strength. The Inferno Dragon had arrived before the Purple Shadow Fox could crawl up. It grabbed the Purple Shadow Fox by its limbs and flapped its wings, soaring up into the sky. This was a skill unique to dragons, Whirlwind. The Inferno Dragon flew up rapidly. Within less than 1 second, the Inferno Dragon, rushing like a rocket, had reached the highest point of the protective screen above the stage. In the next second, the Inferno Dragon turned around and dived down. No. Fei Yanbo was frightened. He quickly sent a message to the Purple Shadow Fox, ordering for it to wrest itself free. At the same time, Fei Yanbo leveraged his astral powers. He couldn't fly, but he unleashed many blades of astral power. However, his strength was limited, inferior to that of the Purple Shadow Fox. How could his attack make any difference when not even the Purple Shadow Fox could inflict any harm on the Inferno Dragon? Since his strikes were useless, Fei Yanbo built many astral power protective screens on the ground. He had not built many layers when the Inferno Dragon dropped the Purple Shadow Fox at a height of over 50 meters above the ground. Afterward, the Inferno Dragon made a turn and flew up again. Boom! The Purple Shadow Fox was smashed into the ground. The huge impact shook the entire stadium like an earthquake. Some walls even began to crack. When the dust settled, Fei Yanbo looked around. He saw a huge pit on the ground where his Purple Shadow Fox was in. It had passed out. Fei Yanbo jumped into the pit at once to check the Purple Shadow Fox. He felt he could breathe when he was sure that the Purple Shadow Fox wasn't injured as seriously as he had imagined. His protective screens were of some use after all. Also, the second before the Purple Shadow Fox smashed into the ground, it escaped from the Inferno Dragon's grasp. So, the Purple Shadow Fox was able to unleash a lightning cannon and a tail whip toward the ground. The recoil force slowed it down, neutralizing some of the force accumulated as it fell from up high. That being said, given the sheer impact, the Purple Shadow Fox was knocked out nonetheless. Fei Yanbo was happy that the Purple Shadow Fox was not in fatal danger, but the feeling was quickly substituted by fury. He had lost to a 7th rank pet. This Inferno Dragon was of the best kind amongst dragons. However, it had just reached adulthood, just like his student Luo Fengtian's Black Pit Dragon. Before the battle, Fei Yanbo thought he could teach Su Ping and his Inferno Dragon a lesson with Luo Fengtian's Black Pit Dragon. He believed that with the help of his bloodthirst augmentation skill, he could make the Black Pit Dragon ignore the pressure from a more advanced dragon. His original plan made him think it would be a piece of cake to defeat the Inferno Dragon using the Black Pit Dragon alone. The fact was, he had lost to the Inferno Dragon even with his Purple Shadow Fox. This Inferno Dragon had not only overwhelmed Luo Fengtian but his pet as well. Fei Yanbo was fuming with anger at the thought of how despicable this Inferno Dragon was. What kind of dragon would use Stone Aimer? What kind of dragon would cling to life so tightly? Did this Inferno Dragon deserve to be named a dragon? The Inferno Dragon landed while Fei Yanbo was still fuming. The ground trembled a bit. The Inferno Dragon stood in front of Su Ping, bellowing at Fei Yanbo as a display of strength, and then turned around to Su Ping and hummed, fawning on Su Ping. Fei Yanbo was filled with wrath as he witnessed this. At this moment, the audience had gradually returned to their senses. The battles were over and the Inferno Dragon had won. It defeated an 8th rank Purple Shadow Fox easily, without Su Ping using any augmentation skills. How strong was the Inferno Dragon? Was it true that it had just reached adulthood? If it weren't for the size of the Inferno Dragon which couldn't be altered, people would think this was an 8th rank pet. Dongming Song, Luo Guxiu, and the others looked at each other. While stunned, they felt relieved as well. They were happy that Su Ping was able to win. They were worried that Su Ping would be prey to arrogance, making the careless decision of foregoing the use of augmentation skills. Luckily, the Inferno Dragon had proven its might, maybe to an excessive degree. It could withstand that Thunder Prism. The Inferno Dragon was practically immune to energy attacks. The average Inferno Dragons couldn't have done this. Dongming Song was well aware of that great master behind Su Ping. Of course, they would train this Inferno Dragon well. Sure enough, such an unusual training made this Inferno Dragon superior to other Inferno Dragons. Luo Fengtian and the other students with him were stunned speechless. They never thought that Fei Yanbo would also be helpless against this Inferno Dragon, which was at the same rank as the Dark Pit Dragon. After a short moment of silence, a loud cheer burst out in the stadium. That was a cheer of genuine happiness. It was as if the students could finally vent their feelings after a long time of oppression. Ever since the matches began, they had never had the chance to chant or cheer. Their side had been losing all this time, which made them feel depressed. But now, they had won. Su Ping won. He defeated a teacher from the Berserking Blade Academy. The sense of defeat, loss and sadness was wiped out. Many people felt a lump in their throats. Cheers and applause filled the entire stadium. Zhou Yunkin and Luo Fengtian pulled long faces. Like some grains of sand washed up to the edge of the shore by the surging waves, they felt they didn't belong there, a place filled with cheers and applause. They felt a bit dejected. Yi Hao's eyes reddened with tears as he heard those cheers. The honor of the academy had been protected. It wasn't thanks to him, but this didn't make him any less excited. Yi Hao made up his mind. He would pay a visit to Su Ping's store as he looked at that formidable Inferno Dragon and Su Ping, whose appearance seemed insignificant compared to the Inferno Dragon. On the stage, while hearing those rounds of applause, Fei Yanbo felt it was as if many people were slapping his cheeks. His face was clouded. Biting his teeth in anger, he called the purple shadow fox back to the pet space. A glint of viciousness flashed past his eyes. This isn't over yet. I just didn't want to bully the weak. This is just my secondary pet. With that said, Fei Yanbo opened up the pet space again. An extremely cold and terrifying aura radiated from the inside, and the cheering voices in the entire stadium cooled down quickly. Admin, lol, now our MC will also bring out his main pet. Astral Pet Store. Chapter 147, My Secondary Pet. A stinking smell came out from the space. Accompanied by this damp and cold breath, a hideous snake head slowly stuck out from the inside. The dark black scales on the snake head were palm-sized pieces, closely connected, and smooth like dark jewels. The dark snake flicked out its tongue. Su Ping could see himself reflected in its pupils. When this huge snake wiggled out, the cheer was gone. It was as if everyone had lost their voices at the same time. All the students were staring at this massive snake in disbelief. An abyss snake. A 9th rank pet of the demon type. This abyss snake was quite massive, with a diameter of 4 to 5 meters, which indicated that its belly would not change much even if the abyss snake were to eat up an elephant. The length of this abyss snake was about 100 meters. It was appalling to see this abyss snake wiggling forward on this shattered stage. There was no doubt that this pet had reached adulthood, having developed almost to the peak of its strength. At the very worst, the abyss snake was at the 9th rank. At the peak of its strength, the abyss snake would reach the intermediate position of the 9th rank. Dongming Song, Luo Guxu, and Lan He were scared. They didn't know that Fei Boyan had such a formidable pet. Qi Yuanfeng, the strongest of all the advanced teachers, was perhaps the only one in the entire academy who could defeat this pet. On the other hand, Su Ping could fly, and he demonstrated abilities exclusive to titled battle pet warriors. Maybe he had another ace card as well. If he had a 9th rank pet, he would be able to accept this challenge. The snake of Fei the Devil. Dai Yan and the other students turned pale at the sight of this snake. They couldn't help but shake. They were terrified of this beast. This snake was the reason why Fei Yanbo was named Fei the Devil. On the stage, Fei Yanbo closed the summoning space after the abyss snake came out. He threw a cold look at the Inferno Dragon and then shifted his attention to Su Ping. That purple shadow fox is merely my secondary pet. This is my main pet. Are you willing to fight it? Su Ping raised his eyebrows. Fei Yanbo was reluctant to admit defeat. What a coincidence. This is my secondary pet as well, Su Ping answered. Then, he called the Inferno Dragon back. Fei Yanbo was surprised to see Su Ping taking such actions. He was a bit nervous as he remembered Su Ping could fly. If Su Ping were a titled battle pet warrior, then it was only natural that he would have a 9th rank pet. That being said, Fei Yanbo was not all that scared. He had thought of all the possibilities the moment he summoned the abyss snake. If he went down, he would do so gracefully. Besides, he didn't think defeat was a must for him. Even if Su Ping were a titled battle pet warrior, it was very likely that he had just reached that level. As for the pets he had, the best would be a 9th rank one. As for Su Ping's own combat abilities, they could be ignored by the abyss snake. Humans were inferior to pets of the same rank. Plus, the abyss snake was amongst the most ferocious of all 9th rank pets. Most pets of the same rank were unable to defeat it. They were basically its food. Dongming Song, Luo Guxiu, and the other students breathed in relief when the Inferno Dragon was called back. It was powerful, but it had just reached adulthood. Compared to the abyss snake, the Inferno Dragon was weaker. Of course, they still wanted to see the Inferno Dragon. At the same time, since the Inferno Dragon had been called back, Su Ping was going to use a stronger pet than the Inferno Dragon. The audience was getting excited, everyone looked forward to what they were going to see next. Su Ping opened up the pet space again after the Inferno Dragon was recalled. This time, the swirl wasn't large, it was merely 1/10 in size compared to when the Inferno Dragon came out. From the dark swirl reached out a dark skeleton hand. In the next moment, the little skeleton jumped out. This time, it didn't fall as it landed. Given its current skills, it would be hard for the little skeleton to fall into pieces again. After the little skeleton came out, it soon noticed Fei Yanbo and the huge abyss snake behind him. The little skeleton darted one glance at him and then turned to Su Ping. Su Ping squatted down, patted its round and smooth skull, and asked the little skeleton to open up its mouth. He reached inside and took out that bead in case it would fall out in the fight later. That bead had changed from the size of a cobblestone to the size of a peanut. It wouldn't take long for it to be consumed completely. Su Ping put the bead away and the little skeleton looked up at him, unwilling to be separated from that bead. Su Ping patted its head, saying that the bead would be returned after the fight. The little skeleton understood the gist from Su Ping's message and nodded. Then, the little skeleton turned around and looked at Fei Yanbo and that huge abyss snake with its empty eye sockets. Nobody made a sound. Everyone was frozen still when they saw what Su Ping had summoned. Su Ping was planning to use this skeleton to fight that formidable 9th rank abyss snake of the demon family. Really, many people had witnessed how outstanding this skeleton was during his first lecture. However, the skeleton was at the 6th rank at best. It would be defeated by that purple shadow fox within a second, let alone this abyss snake. Su Ping might as well have used that Inferno Dragon. Some people were wondering if Su Ping decided to admit defeat and wanted to just muddle through. Dongming Song was also dumbstruck. He could never, for the life of him, imagine that Su Ping would use this skeleton to fight a violent opponent. He had heard from Luo Guxiu about the terrors of this skeleton, which was the one that killed that magical corpse beast at the upper position of the 8th rank. But it was because of a conducive environment. There were enough dead beings for the skeleton to find leverage. How many corpses and skeletons could it find in this location? The little skeleton couldn't find that kind of help. Besides, this abyss snake was more powerful than the magical corpse beast. The 9th and 8th ranks were worlds apart. Even a dragon at the upper position of the 8th rank could be defeated by an average pet of the 9th rank. Dongming Song felt awful. Su Ping had just won when he was going to be defeated. The hope that had just been rekindled was going to vanish. This was a horrifying feeling. Lan He, Yi Hao, and some students that had participated in the match finally understood what was going on. They were puzzled, confused, and enraged. Su Ping might just as well be admitting defeat. What is your brother? At the emergency access, Chen Xuanhuan saw Su Ping summoning the skeleton. She was wondering if he was making a joke, a ridiculous one at that. Using a skeleton to fight the abyss snake was worse than smashing an egg against a rock. Su Lingyu was too at a loss. She knew that Su Ping's skeleton was unusual. That being said, it was just a skeleton, the lowest being of all pets of the undead family. He was losing this match on purpose. Why would he do this? No one could find the answer. Fei Yanbo was nervous when he saw Su Ping opening up the pet space. However, Fei Yanbo's expressions became quite funny when he saw this skeleton tumbling out. Su Ping was audacious enough to say that the Inferno Dragon was his secondary pet. Fei Yanbo thought Su Ping was going to summon a shocking beast. It turned out, he summoned nothing more than a skeleton. What was that about? I can give you another chance if you summoned the wrong pet, Fei Yanbo suggested. He wasn't being kind. It was just that the abyss snake could easily defeat this skeleton within one blow. Winning like that was not interesting. Su Ping glared at him but offered no response. He just told the little skeleton to do its best. The little skeleton seemed liberated after receiving Su Ping's message. The dark mist gradually swam out from its eye sockets and thick, dark masses of energy was emitted from its four limbs. In an instant, the little skeleton was covered up by dark mist, its bones were partly hidden. The little skeleton seemed to be the demon god itself. Fei Yanbo adopted a more serious attitude as he saw this dark mass. This little skeleton was uncommon. Even so, the little skeleton would not be able to defeat his abyss snake. Having released the dark energy, the little skeleton slowly drew its blade. The bone blade that the little skeleton inserted in its waist was a fallen tooth from some unknown monster they found inside a mysterious temple in the chaotic realm of the undead. There were many such unknown monsters in that ancient temple. All of them had lost their lives to the traps in the temple. This tooth had been picked up by the little skeleton as a weapon since it was quite sharp. When the bone blade was drawn, some dark lines that looked like vines and runes at the same time emerged from the inside of the little skeleton's bones. Those lines slowly moved to its arm. The tooth in the little skeleton's hand began to grow, sharper and longer, and more ferocious. Around the little skeleton, the mass of dark aura surged as if countless demons were dancing and struggling inside. At that moment, the air above the entire stadium was frozen. The emotionless eyes of the abyss snake coiling behind Fei Yanbo were suddenly contracted. Its wiggling body tightened up instantly. The abyss snake raised its head. That was the instinctual reaction of a snake when in danger, and the abyss snake was no exception. The abyss snake kept its eyes fixed on the little skeleton, who was only as large as its pupil. And yet, the abyss snake felt something unspeakable and soul-shattering coming from this small thing. The cruel and barbaric abyss snake was shocked by this faint presence of terror. The abyss snake even desired to withdraw. The sudden onset of strong feelings took Fei Yanbo by surprise. Astral Pet Store. Chapter 148. Image of the Skeleton King. What is happening? Fei Yanbo was a bit puzzled. Why did he sense some fear mixed with the violence in the mind of the abyss snake? Where did this fear come from? Was it because of this skeleton? This skeleton was uncommon. Even so, it was still just a skeleton. Fei Yanbo was less scared of the little skeleton. It wasn't because he was a human being, but because the little skeleton had picked the abyss snake as the target. This was a battle. Naturally, the strong one had to be dealt with first and then the weaker ones. The bone blade in the little skeleton's hand trembled. The blade seemed to be making mournful sounds. All of its killing intent, violence and rage were pouring into the bone blade. While Fei Yanbo was in a trance, the little skeleton suddenly took action. It suddenly disappeared on the spot, and within the split of a second, the little skeleton had re-emerged in midair right in front of the abyss snake's head. The little skeleton was only the size of this abyss snake's pupil. Those dark eyes reflected the image of the little skeleton, who was well within reach. The abyss snake's pupils shrank to the size of a needle eye immediately. Hiss. The abyss snake was overwhelmed by a profound fear of death. It lost its mind. The evil aura underneath its scales surged out. The abyss snake opened its mouth, and at that moment, it spat a thick burst of venom which was toxic enough to corrode even armored concrete within a rather short time. However, right when the abyss snake spat the venom, the little skeleton changed its position in the air like a ghost. The little skeleton dodged the venom and then leaped in the air to move away from the abyss snake's huge mouth. Then it made its way to behind the abyss snake's head. Before anyone noticed, the short bone blade the little skeleton was holding began to be surrounded by a dark aura. It grew to the size of a sword 4 to 5 meters long. Poof! Black blood was spilled all over, gushing out from the abyss snake's mouth. The excruciating pain made the abyss snake tumble around. There was a cut by the abyss snake's mouth extending for over a dozen meters, all the way to its neck. It was said that abyss snakes dwelled in the abyss of hellish places and they grew up in harsh environments. That was why their scales were almost as tough as dragon scales. Not even armor-piercing or rocket bullets could tear open those scales, not to mention ordinary swords and knives. However, at this moment, those scales had been cut open as if they were pieces of paper. This wound was more than 10 meters long and deep enough to reveal flesh and bones. A large amount of black blood was oozing out and the smell was pungent. On the ground, Fei Yanbo was rooted to the spot. His mind was blank. The little skeleton's rapid speed had surprised him already. He was scared stiff by the time the little skeleton appeared in front of the abyss snake in the air. Right then, the miserable cries and that huge cut made him wonder if he was dreaming or hallucinating. How could a 9th rank, cruel abyss snake be hurt by a skeleton? Fei Yanbo was not the only one stunned. Dongming Song, Luo Guxu, and all the others were also speechless. They were aware of how uncommon this little skeleton was, but they never expected to witness this level of power. At the moment, considering its speed, strength, and that evil aura, the little skeleton was not weaker than a 9th rank pet. The former might outdo the latter, as a matter of fact. People would believe that the skeleton was a demon pet if not for its appearance. Sitting next to Dongming Song were Zhou Yunkin, Luo Fengtian, and his fellow students. The word shocked was not enough to describe their feelings. They stared at the stage with wide-open eyes due to strong disbelief. They had thought they were sure to win and would make a great comeback when they saw that the opponent was a skeleton. And yet, this sudden shift was beyond their wildest imagination. Not only had the skeleton initiated the attack, it had also hurt the abyss snake in an instant. The audience became silent. This change of events caught them off guard. They just stared blankly at this queer scene and their minds were unable to comprehend it. On the stage, neither the little skeleton nor the abyss snake stopped to think. After the little skeleton finished with this move, it did not land on the ground. Instead, the little skeleton made a turn in the air again with the dark energy surrounding it. The raging evil aura danced around the little skeleton and gradually, the image of a skeleton that was dozens of meters tall came into being behind the little skeleton. From this illusionary image came out the sense of a presence that was overwhelming and more powerful than Beast King's. This image seemed to be from another space and time because only a glimpse of this intimidating presence could be felt. This presence brought pressure as if a Beast King had arrived. The abyss snake that was tumbling around became stiff all of a sudden. The abyss snake was a cold-blooded animal and right then, it felt all of its blood freeze in an instant. It could no longer move. Its eyes were fixed on this illusionary image, filled with fear. The little skeleton approached the abyss snake within a second. The former raised its blade and slashed at the abyss snake's head. The abyss snake looked at the little skeleton, scared, but it was immobilized and only its tail was shaking. The hardest scale on its forehead was cracked easily by the bone blade. A crack showed up on its forehead with blood gushing out. The raging and overwhelming pressure forced the abyss snake to lower its head until it fell on the ground. The huge skeleton image behind the little skeleton quickly disappeared. The raging evil aura around the little skeleton died down a bit and its momentum was dropping. Su Ping looked as the image disappeared in surprise. The skeleton image was not targeted at him but he had a clear sense of it since he was in the middle of the fight. Could that be the legendary Skeleton King? That power demonstrated appeared to be from a Beast King. If the image were more tangible, even Beast Kings would be awed. This was an effect that a deterrence skill could not achieve. It seems that my little guy has benefited a lot from consuming the Skeleton King bloodline, Su Ping said to himself. He was happy about this because the little skeleton was his first pet and it was at the intermediate position of the 6th rank with below average aptitude, when in fact, the little skeleton had demonstrated combat abilities approaching the upper position of the 9th rank. When the little skeleton killed the magical corpse beast during their first exploration, it had shown power close to the 9th rank. Recently, Su Ping didn't spend much time training the little skeleton other than asking it to consume the Skeleton King bloodline. This level of progress was beyond his expectation. The little skeleton's bloodline had changed. It was no longer a common skeleton but one that had a mixture of the Skeleton King's bloodline. Otherwise, the little skeleton's aptitude rating would remain at above average. After all, to find a common skeleton that could exhibit power of the 9th rank's upper position when the skeleton itself was at the 6th rank's intermediate position, chances were 1 in a billion. Such a skeleton could be regarded as first-rate. But the rating of the little skeleton was to compare it against all the skeletons with Skeleton King bloodline since the beginning of Chaos till now. Therefore, the little skeleton only had a below-average rating considering its performance and combat abilities. The abyss snake had lost its battle will. Su Ping understood that the outcome was clear. He told the little skeleton to return. The little skeleton was about to continue and kill this abyss snake but it stopped after receiving Su Ping's message. The little skeleton turned around and flashed back to Su Ping. The little skeleton learned how to flash to a place by itself when it was consuming the Skeleton King bloodline. It was similar to Thunder Flash. To put it more accurately, the little skeleton copied the Thunder Flash. Back at the chaotic realm of the undead, the little skeleton fought with the lightning rat side by side and they were both trained by Su Ping. The lightning rat employed the Thunder Flash many times and that left a deep impression on the little skeleton. While the little skeleton was consuming the Skeleton King bloodline, it began to test an experiment. Using its own methods, the little skeleton grasped the gist of the flash in Thunder Flash and thus was able to move around at will. The only difference was that the lightning rat used thunder power in Thunder Flash, while little skeleton used its dark and undead power to realize this effect. The little skeleton returned and looked up at Su Ping, as if asking for something. Su Ping understood that. He smiled, patted the little skeleton on its head, and then placed the bead back in its mouth. The undead energy in the little skeleton's mouth surged and sent the bead into its skull at once. The bead began to spin around as it was consumed. The little skeleton's mouth was pulled to the sides as if smiling. Su Ping sensed how delighted the little skeleton was. Su Ping threw a look at that abyss snake which was rated to have a poor aptitude. This abyss snake would be regarded as a common one, not excellent nor bad. And yet, the abyss snake had been scared by the image of the Skeleton King the little skeleton generated. That would leave a mark on the abyss snake's mind. If that emotional scar could not heal, then the abyss snake's aptitude would become worse, its abilities would decline and its violent nature would be no more. As a pet of the demon family, without enough violence, the abyss snake was half disabled. Su Ping didn't feel sorry for the abyss snake. It had chosen the wrong master. Su Ping opened up the pet space so that the little skeleton could go back inside and continue to consume the bead. It was time for him to leave. He darted a glance at the protective screen around the stage and said to Fei Yanbo, who was still in a daze, "Stop staring. Take your snake back so they can deactivate the protective screen." Astral Pet Store. Chapter 149 The Myth. Fei Yanbo was startled by Su Ping's words. The abyss snake was curled up on the ground, shaking. This was a fact that was hard to accept for Fei Yanbo. It took him a lot of trouble to obtain this abyss snake. Just then, it had been defeated by something that was just a skeleton. How ridiculous this was. And yet, facts were facts. He had to accept it no matter what. That is not a common skeleton, is it? After a moment of silence, Fei Yanbo asked. He noticed that his voice was hoarse. Su Ping threw him a look but said nothing in reply. He wasn't obligated to leak information about his pets. Besides, this was such a stupid question he didn't bother to answer. Fei Yanbo curled his lips after Su Ping's reaction. The former didn't pursue the question further. He turned around and called his shaking and bleeding abyss snake back into the pet space. This battle ended quickly. There were more abilities that his abyss snake had not been able to display, but Fei Yanbo was well aware that he had lost. Without the threat from the abyss snake, the protective screen had been turned off. Su Ping turned around and flew away from this battered stage. Fei Yanbo was filled with mixed feelings as he watched Su Ping leave. Fei Yanbo was reluctant to accept this outcome. He was filled with bitterness, jealousy, and a sense of luck turned sour. A late awaker should be feared. This was what people would say. Finally, that day, he had a full understanding of the meaning. Su Ping flew out of the stage. Yi Hao had just recovered from the shock of the abyss snake being defeated. Seeing Su Ping flying astonished him yet again. He opened up his mouth, completely in shock. As Su Ping left the stage, the students also came back to their senses. They glanced over the stage that was a complete mess. While they were still in shock, soon, people began to tremble with excitement. They cheered for Su Ping loudly. Their cheers could raise the roof. Su Ping won again. He defeated the mighty abyss snake. To many students, the flying Su Ping was like a legend. He was invincible. He was such a young person, about the same age as the students. And yet, the achievements he had accomplished were something the students could never reach. Who could be said to be a peerless genius? Su Ping was such a person. Many people chanted at the same time, "Winner! Winner! Winner!" Everyone chanted with one voice, and it was so loud that the venue was shaking. Their voices were getting louder each time, loud enough to wake the dead. Dongming Song, Luo Guxu, and the others were pulled back to reality by the cheers of excitement. They were surprised and delighted at the same time, seeing the victorious Su Ping with awe and veneration. Su Ping had demonstrated a strength superior to the other average advanced teachers. He was someone that could compete against Qin Yuanfeng. Besides, Su Ping was much younger than Qin Yuanfeng. Therefore, the former had much more potential. Lan He, who was standing by Luo Guxu, saw Su Ping in person for the first time. This one time had left a deep impression on him. The sentiment was similar to what the students felt at the moment. This young man was a winner, an invincible winner. Students like Yi Hao and Luo Fengtian were talented young people. Compared to them, Su Ping was an overlord among all those talents. He was the blessed one in this generation. Zhou Yunkin felt something more than astonishment. He felt regret. He had offended such a person for nothing. Su Ping had the higher moral ground to begin with. Even if he didn't, it would count as nothing if Su Ping had punished those students out of his own initiative. This was a world where the powerful people ruled. Su Ping was equipped with such strength at such a young age. In the future, there was a chance that he could become a legendary battle pet warrior. If one day, by luck, Su Ping became a legendary battle pet warrior, and he sought to get back at their berserking blade academy, one word of his could erase the academy from the planet. The erasing would be complete and no one would dare to say its name again. Just this thought alone left Zhou Yunkin covered with cold sweat. He hunched his back and shivered. Luo Fengtian, Dai Yan, and the other students had turned numb after so many shocks. They were astonished time and time again since they met Su Ping not long before. At the moment, as Su Ping was making his way back, they were fearful that he would seek revenge. Dai Yan, in particular, was with a heavy heart. He wished he could sneak underground so that Su Ping couldn't see him. Those that were close to Dai Yan glared at him in fury. They held a grudge against him. If Dai Yan had not been in Su Ping's way, none of this would have happened. They would have returned in glory after winning a complete victory. Su Ping didn't even look at Luo Fengtian and the other students. They were not on his mind. His disputes with them ended at the campus gate. He wouldn't go after them. "I think I'm done here. It's time for me to go back," Su Ping said to Dongming Song and nodded to Luo Guxu. He had to go because he was worried about his store. He had to pick out the pets for dummy training. He checked the time. When he went back, it would be an hour, just the right time for the next batch of pets to be trained. Dongming Song was speechless, seeing Su Ping acting so casually after causing this disturbance. Well, the words tumbled around in Dongming Song's mouth, but eventually, he couldn't utter a sentence. Su Ping had more than that master to rely on. His strength was enough to defeat everyone present. Not even Dongming Song was certain he could win against him. Luo Guxu came back to her senses. She suggested in a hurry, "I'll see you out." "It's okay. I know the way." Su Ping understood that they surely had many trivial matters to handle after the matches. He didn't want to bother her, so he waved goodbye and left. Zhou Yunkin wished to speak but stopped on second thought. He wanted to strike a conversation with Su Ping, but the latter didn't even look at him. Zhou Yunkin failed to find any chances to initiate the talk before Su Ping was gone. Everyone looked at Su Ping. For a long time, nobody said a word. Zhou Yunkin's mind was weighed down. He was the first one to look away from Su Ping. He said to Dongming Song, "Dong, we were in the wrong for what happened today. I sincerely apologize to you. The Berserking Blade Academy will remain a friend for the Phoenix Peak Academy forever." With that said, he bowed to Dongming Song to his waist. Dongming Song was contemptuous of Zhou Yunkin's words. But it was hard for the latter to adopt such an attitude in front of so many students. Dongming Song frowned and replied, "It's nothing. The Phoenix Peak Academy was clearly defeated and we are willing to admit that." Zhou Yunkin forced a smile. He stood up straight and went on, "Dong, if you have the chance, could you please apologize to this Mr. Su on my behalf? Or maybe you can introduce me to him." Dongming Song was a sly man. Naturally, he knew what Zhou Yunkin was worried about. Inside, Dongming Song was smearing. The previously aggressive Zhou Yunkin was then begging for mercy. However, a person that had been provoked would not simply forgive after some beautiful words. Everyone had pride. "Well, you saw firsthand that I can barely get a chance to talk to Mr. Su. It took me great trouble to invite him here," Dongming Song answered. Zhou Yunkin heaved a sigh since Dongming Song couldn't help him out. Zhou Yunkin knew he had displeased this old friend of his. He didn't continue this topic. Since Dongming Song would be unwilling to help and introduce him to Su Ping, Zhou Yunkin would have to rely on his connections to ask about Su Ping and then go there to apologize in person. Su Ping left through the corridor. The teachers that were watching the matches on the sides turned to Su Ping as he walked by. Those teachers were excited and awed by him. They all nodded and greeted Su Ping. Some of the senior teachers had been unwilling to admit that Su Ping was strong before. All of them had thought that he wasn't qualified to be an advanced teacher given his young age. However, after this match, they no longer had any complaints about Su Ping being a teacher there. If Su Ping wasn't qualified enough to be an advanced teacher, then nobody else would have the right to be one. Su Ping nodded as a reply to those greeting him. Su Ping went to the emergency access and saw Cheng Xuanhuan and Su Lingyu there. He was relieved to see Su Lingyu had recovered. He nodded to her and said, "Save me some meat tonight." Su Lingyu watched as Su Ping approached her. Everything felt like a dream. She even believed this wasn't her loser brother because he was so unfamiliar. However, Su Ping's words dragged her out from that kind of strange feeling, instantly making him seem familiar all over again. She bit her lips. Many questions were on her mind and she wanted to seek some answers from Su Ping. Still, this was just not the right time or place for that. She bit her lips. "Are you hurt?" As she voiced her question, she suddenly realized that she was actually worried about Su Ping. She immediately blushed. She felt she wasn't herself at all. Why was that so? Su Ping was surprised, seeing that she cared about him. He was happy about this. He patted her head and said, "Good. Don't you like this? Just try to be a cute little sister. Your brother will cover your back as long as you behave." Su Lingyu's well-combed hair was left in a mess when he moved his hand away. Chen Linshuang, who was standing by the side, was so stunned her jaw dropped. Su Lingyu didn't expect Su Ping to be so intimate with her in public. She felt embarrassed, so she slapped his hand. "Get your stinky hand away." She became her old self again. Su Ping smiled, waved them goodbye, and left. Su Lingyu bit her lip as she watched Su Ping leave. She was filled with mixed feelings. She never thought that one day, Su Ping could achieve what she had dreamed of. This had completely shifted her view of him. She even wondered if Su Ping had been hiding the fact that he had awakened at birth. Their family wasn't wealthy enough and only one of them could be well cultivated. So, he gave the chance to her. That would be a touching story. The more she pondered about this, the more convinced she was of it. Only by asking her mum could she find the answer. While she was still brooding about those ideas, Cheng Xuanhuan handed her a mirror and pointed to her hair, indicating that she could fix it. Su Lingyu was confused. She threw a look at the mirror and then saw that mess on her head. Su Ping. A bellow suddenly resounded in all the stadium. Those unaware even thought that another ferocious beast had arrived. Someone that was close to the exit ran away at once. Astral Pet Store. Chapter 150 Online Tutoring. Su Ping arrived at the store and looked at the time. 1 hour and a half had passed. That was half an hour wasted. He felt sorry for the loss of time. As soon as he entered the store, he took out the pets that had finished with their training, picked out another group, and then gave them to the dummy trainer. While the dummy was performing the training, Su Ping sent the little skeleton to the nursing pen. As for the Inferno Dragon, it would have to stay in the contract space. The Inferno Dragon was too large to fit in the small store at the moment. Su Ping felt the urge to make enough money to buy the other stores nearby so that he could upgrade his store. Having settled the little skeleton, Su Ping went back to the storefront to wait for potential business while cultivating astral powers. In the meantime, he opened the computer and logged onto the Explorer's website to access the page for private tutors. This time, I have to find someone smarter, someone that can understand what I say after a few words so that progress shows more dramatically, Su Ping told himself. The first one he found had made him waste half a night. In a villa, Xuanhuan was playing computer games. He was a top student at the Berserking Blade Academy, but top students also needed entertainment. He couldn't devote all his life to cultivation. That would bore him to death. Xuanhuan screamed at the screen, "Why are you hiding there? Come on, I'm losing my life here. Fuck vo. Come on out." He was fuming with anger. On the computer, Xuanhuan was playing top solo, controlling his pet, Razor Crocodile. This Razor Crocodile was a cute, cartoon version of the real-life Razor Crocodile. In the game, the Razor Crocodile appeared to be adorable and at the same time, powerful. The several skills provided in the game were the standard inherent skills Razor Crocodiles would master. In this era when battle pet warriors were mainstream in society, not only were pets irreplaceable help in people's lives, pets were involved in all industries as well. Xuanhuan clicked on the keyboard like crazy. Even so, the screen dimmed down soon. Thunder Basilisk inflicted 823 points of damage on you with its flames. Thunder Basilisk inflicted 320 points of damage on you with its tail. Xuanhuan saw his then hiding teammates dash out from the tall grass upon his death. Then, the skill didn't work and the Thunder Basilisk that their opponents controlled had returned to their base tower. As such, their opponents collected some loot along the way and went back. Damn it. Xuanhuan was burning up. He clicked on ESC and exited the game. You idiots. Let's see how you play with one less person. 5 minutes in the game, angry for 2 hours. Ding. While Xuanhuan's wrath had yet to dissipate, a window popped out on his computer. Xuanhuan took a look. Your friend, Longjiang Cool Dude, has logged on. It was him. Xuanhuan's eyes glowed and the anger was subdued by a large margin. That was only a game, which was nothing compared to his future. He clicked on the pop-up window and entered the website at once. To wait for Su Ping, whenever he was at home, he would keep his computer on at all times. He thought if he met Su Ping again, he could ask for another tutoring session. Last time, thanks to Su Ping's instructions, Xuanhuan became number 2 in their academy. The only one he was second to was that guy surnamed Mu. That was a stunning progress. He wouldn't have achieved this no matter how many expert tutors he could hire. As for finding other titled battle pet warriors, he had to find the right connection. Su Ping was a rare case where a titled battle pet warrior would reach out in person and the tutoring turned out to be more than effective. Su Ping was better than the other titled battle pet warrior tutors Xuanhuan had seen before. Xuanhuan would not hesitate to pay double the price for Su Ping's guidance. 2 smiling face stickers were sent. Mr. Su, hi, Xuanhuan typed quickly. At the store. Ding. Su Ping had just opened the page without taking a closer look when he saw someone sending him a message. He was curious. He clicked it open and saw the name in the chat history. He suddenly remembered the buyer from last time. Hi. He gave a casual reply and then went back to browsing the page. Xuanhuan was excited since Su Ping had actually replied. Fearing that Su Ping would log off soon after all, masters like him would be busy, Xuanhuan typed rapidly, Mr. Su, do you have some time? Could you please come for another session? I've recently had some questions about my pets. Money is not a problem. You can name the price. Su Ping received the message. He opened it and raised his eyebrows. Money was not the problem. Even so, he couldn't have set the price at 2 million, twice as high as before. But if he raised the price by merely hundreds of thousands, to him, that would still be a loss. I'm busy, he rejected. Xuanhuan was surprised by this short reply. The excitement in his heart died down. This result was not acceptable to Xuanhuan. He sent many adorable emojis with watery eyes. Mr. Su, just come and give me some random instructions. I mean it. How about I give you 1.5 million? Su Ping. The increase in price was just as he had expected. He wasn't interested. Xuanhuan added, Mr. Su. I am begging you. I am having miserable days here. My combat abilities were drastically enhanced thanks to your instructions from last time. That was quite beneficial to me. However, there is still someone I cannot win against. Mr. Su, consider this a charity. You can name your requirements as long as you can come and give me some guidance. Su Ping was browsing through the page for other students' information. He was annoyed by the many system alerts. He wanted to unfriend him. That being said, considering he had made money through Xuanhuan, unfriending him seemed unethical. He opened the chat and saw all of those words, emojis and stickers. Alas. Su Ping heaved a sigh and began typing. I'm really busy, but, if you have any questions, you can ask them now. If I know the answers, I will explain them to you. Of course, this won't be for free. Really. Xuanhuan was excited after Su Ping had finally replied. He typed at once, Mr. Su, you are so nice. Here is the thing. Last time, I used my... He typed the problems he had run into during his battles and waited for Su Ping's reply nervously. Su Ping read through the question, which was commonplace for him. He provided the answer and in the end, he said, I charge $500,000 for this answer. Xuanhuan carefully read the messages Su Ping sent. He suddenly felt refreshed and enlightened. He didn't mind it when he saw Su Ping mentioning the cost. Xuanhuan answered readily, no problem. Mr. Su, thank you so much. Don't mention it, Su Ping replied. After a pause, he asked, when will you transfer the money? Xuanhuan didn't expect to see this. Immediately, he answered, now. Okay, Su Ping replied fast. Not long after, Su Ping heard the ringtone on his phone. The transferred amount was correct. Su Ping was happy and had a better impression of this guy. The chump was average in combat but quick in providing money. There was hope in him. Xuanhuan asked to check, Mr. Su, have you received the money? Yes. Mr. Su, the holidays are coming up. Can I pay you a visit? Su Ping knew that Xuanhuan was trying to figure out his address. He didn't mind this. After all, nothing could hurt him within the bounds of the store. Sure. He consented. Xuanhuan resided in the upper town area and was a wealthy kid. He had to belong to a household similar to Yi Hao's. Su Ping would not let go of such a rich customer. Xuanhuan had thought at first that Su Ping would turn him down. Someone like Su Ping was unlikely to reveal his address. Zhu Quang only asked this question to try his luck. Su Ping agreeing took him by surprise. Looking at the word, sure, Zhu Quang took a while to believe it. He was shivering in excitement. He couldn't believe he had found out the address of a master warrior so easily. Before Zhu Quang could type another message, Su Ping had already forwarded the address of his store. The slums. Zhu Quang was confused about the address. But that was all. He didn't hold any contempt because of the location. He knew that some mighty figures would choose any place as residence. Mere worldly possessions were not of their concern. People would usually rely on precious possessions to increase their social status and identity. However, when it came to those bigwigs, anything they touched, even garbage, would be considered precious treasures. That was how the world worked. Zhu Quang wrote down the address and sent some kissing emojis to Su Ping. Su Ping looked at him but didn't answer. He continued to browse the page. Zhu Quang didn't bother Su Ping anymore. Since he had the address, he could pay a visit to Su Ping and would no longer be afraid that he would disappear. Then, Zhu Quang heard someone going upstairs. He turned around. It was his big sister, Zhu Yingshu. Stop playing games. Have some fruit. Zhu Yingshu arrived with a plate of expensive fruit slices. She placed the plate next to the computer. Zhu Quang was too happy to eat any fruit. Sister, I have a piece of great news. What? Zhu Yingshu saw that Zhu Quang was so excited his neck was turning red. She giggled. What? Pentakill. Poof. This was unexpected. What kind of great news would that be? It wasn't like he was addicted to computer games. Sister, what are you talking about? Zhu Quang said grumpily. Zhu Yingshu sat on the nearby couch. Her long and white legs seemed to be glowing. She picked up some fruit and went on, fine. Tell me, have you become #1 in your academy? Zhu Quang's excitement died down again. Never mind, I'll tell you. Zhu Quang didn't want to face another blow. Zhu Yingshu didn't answer back. Upset, Zhu Quang continued, do you remember that titled battle pet warrior I talked to you about? I met him today and got his address. Address? Zhu Yingshu was taken by surprise. She opened up her beautiful eyes in curiosity. End of the chapter. Astral Pets Store will be read in 5 chapters for every Monday, Wednesday, Friday and Sunday. Please leave this sound novel and press subscribe, follow, and the bell so you don't miss any new clips as well. See you.